We're back with another episode of Spooky Adventures, but this one is a little bit different because I went on my own spooky adventure. I went on my first ever ghost investigation in Jerome, Arizona. I did, in fact, stay at the Grand Hotel, one of the most haunted places in all of the United States. And yes, I did, in fact, stay on the most haunted floor in the Grand Hotel. I'm going to go over everything that I experienced, what we did, show you a couple videos and photographs, as well as kind of just show you some other photos and videos from other YouTubers and influencers that stayed in the same area. I didn't take too many videos or pictures, so I'm going to kind of use the internet to supply and fill in the voids of, again, what I experienced and what I did. So we stayed at the Grand Hotel, and this is a little bit about the hotel and what it looks like. Let's roll it. It's a beautiful hotel, right up there on top of a mountain.
Located just 2 hours north of Phoenix in the hillside boomtown of Jerome, Arizona. The Jerome Grand Hotel initially opened as United Verde Hospital in 1926. It was built to replace the old hospital that was damaged due to a fault shift caused by mine blasting. Upon opening, the 30,000 square foot poured in place concrete building was considered to be the most state-of-the-art hospital in Arizona. The United Verde Hospital served the mine workers, the citizens of Jerome, and the surrounding Verde Valley. While no medical records were left behind, it's believed that around 9,000 people perished before its closure in 1950.
By the way, I investigated that graveyard. We'll get back to that a little bit later in this episode.
One of them being the mysterious death of Claude Harvey, the hospital's maintenance worker. He was found pinned at the neck beneath the hospital's Otis elevator on April 3rd, 1935. The autopsy indicated he was already dead before the elevator hit him. His death remains a murder mystery. The former hospital was abandoned for 44 years before being purchased in 1994 and converted into the now Jerome Grand Hotel. We're here today to stay the night in what's considered by many to be Arizona's most haunted.
Okay, so on the end there, that is right when you're pulling up on the driveway. That's the first thing you're going to see from the Jerome Grand Hotel is the restaurant downstairs called the Asylum. Now, this was not just a hospital, but then it was converted, I believe, into an asylum. So you had insane patients sleeping, living, whatever you want to call it. A few suicides took place in this hotel. And as you heard, around 9,000 suspected deaths did take place in this hotel when it was a hospital. Let's continue.
Hotel.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through a few things from this couple here about the hotel. And then I'm going to show you what my room looked like. And where I slept, where I stayed on the most haunted floor in all of the Grand Hotel. First thing I want to show is just the creepy ass elevator. This thing is about 95 years old. It's been serviced, but everything in there is legitimate and still the same. You're going to take this from the lobby up to your floor. And again, I stayed on the third floor.
Elevator from when the hotel opened in 1926.
You need a key to operate this. So... where are we going?
Fourth floor.
The
Let's
first?
start at the fourth. Let's
Oh,
start
fourth.
off the fourth, yeah.
There we go. Oh.
So this, I think just because of medical reasons, this elevator intentionally moves slow, only like 50 feet or something per minute.
Oh, really? Oh.
Per minute.
This is a very interesting elevator.
Right?
So they're going to go up to the fourth floor. The fourth floor is one of the known haunted floors of that hotel. And kind of they all look the same, but I did want to take you to the specific floor that I stayed at, and I'll show you my own videos in just one moment, but here's a little bit of what the staircase looked like. A lot of people tended to take the staircase because the elevator is so loud, and the loudness of everything, I really want to play into some of the stories that have taken place, which I'll share in just one moment, but also kind of my way of maybe debunking a lot of things that people hear and experience in the hotel.
Supposedly the most haunted floor. We'll see. This is where 2 people have committed suicide by jumping off the balcony.
Okay, so this is allegedly the most haunted room in the entire hotel. There was a gentleman that supposedly rolled his wheelchair off the balcony and committed suicide. And again, this sucker is on the edge of a cliff, folks. And the other person, and I got to be careful here on YouTube, unalived themselves in this room as well. People hear everything from screaming to moaning. They'll see a little boy at the edge of their bed, and that primarily doesn't just take place in room 32, but it also takes place in other rooms as well as the room that I stayed in. There's a spirit cat that people claim to not only see, but they'll hear it pawing at the foot of their bed. They'll hear it pawing on the door, meowing as well. And then they've also experienced it brushing upside their leg, jumping onto their bed, sleeping in bed with them as well. Now, the other things we've heard of is people, not just once or twice, but a lot of people being suffocated, gripped by the neck in their room, and they will end up leaving that night, or there's been stories of them sleeping in a sibling's room because of what just happened to them. The moaning, the screaming's already taken place. They see a bearded man as well, roaming the halls as well as appearing in your room. There's been people that have had full-on conversations with their loved one that was never engaging in that conversation in the first place. So one of the stories that was shared was a woman was in the bathroom and having a full-fledged conversation with her husband. She opens up the door. The husband's sleeping. He had no recollection of what that was. Let's continue.
That's always room.
It's a multi-disc or multi-record.
So that's the hall that we're on. There's 30, 32, 34, and I was in room 36. So I'll kind of show you what my room looked like. And it does give definitely hospital vibes and just kind of weird vibes in general. Here's the first clip I'm going to show you guys is me walking from my room, which was near the elevator, to room 32. And this is what it looked like. So when you're there, I do want to emphasize that you can hear everything. And I apologize that the video is so small. But again, you can hear everything from even the floor above you. And that's something that I first noticed here when I arrived, was that you can hear somebody. So to give you a perspective, there's room 32 right there. Okay, there's room 30. Somebody was in room 30 watching TV. I can hear them. I'm not exaggerating. You guys know I've never swayed you the wrong way. Again, I'm always here to debunk, but I also want to find, credibility and credence to, the paranormal. I could hear them listening to TV all the way from my room, and it sounded as if somebody was watching TV from maybe my bathroom. Now, what gets even more insane is we went down to the second floor, and I was with my wife, and I said, are we still able to hear that guy's TV? Which wasn't that loud, by the way. Like, he wasn't having this thing on blast. He's trying to be respectful. We could still hear his TV from the second floor. And the reason why I want to bring that up is because one of the stories, again, is kind of surrounded by all the noise people hear. And basically, they also hear babies crying at times. That was a very common occurrence that took place. And so here's what my room looked like from the inside. That's where I slept. Yeah, it's neatly done because we were actually leaving when I took this photo. But the room itself, if you look at the floor kind of up there by the where the crown molding would be on the floor, as you can see, it's kind of curved. That's very typical for hospital rooms to help clean it. But there was no specific haunted experiences that happened to me in the room. I actually felt really comfortable there. It was loud. You could hear everything. I mean, you could hear somebody brushing their teeth on the other side of the wall. And I want to bring that up because you hear a lot of stories about people saying, oh, well, I hear conversations, I hear moaning, I hear crying, I hear babies. That would not surprise me in the slightest in this hotel. As I mentioned, you could hear freaking everything. So if somebody's complaining about hearing babies, then I could imagine you honestly even hearing that from a different floor. I also want to bring that up is because people are saying they're hearing crying, moaning, or sounds from a room that is empty. I also want to specify, again, you could hear things clear as day from a whole nother floor. And that was honestly kind of one of the problems as well when we stayed there, was just how noisy everything was while we were there. I tried to grab a little bit of footage, and it's not long, just from my cell phone while we were leaving. But there's room 35, and that's me looking down the hall. And then this is room 36, again, where I stayed. tried to clean up a little bit. That's the bathroom and the bedroom. There's the balcony there looking off into Jerome. And like I said, this is one of the most, that was a closet. This is one of the most haunted floors, or if not the haunted floor in all of just Jerome, but also in America. The other things they said was happening to people was they would lose their items in their room and they would fall like under the bed, or they would see like soap flying across the room. You have a basket of soap inside your hotel room. We didn't experience anything. I didn't hear noises. I didn't hear moaning. Nobody strangled me as far as I'm aware of. So nothing of substance happened at all. It was mostly just me kind of thinking, I can debunk a lot of what's taking place here in this hotel. But it was creepy. The elevator was creepy as well. We did not eat there. But I did go on a ghost tour, which is what I would like to share with some of you right now. Now, I'm going to use kind of Yelp, but this ghost tour took you around all of Jerome. And this is what the kind of tour itself looked like where you show up. I want to say they did an amazing job. I wasn't expecting them to give us actual equipment. So the K2 meters on the left, and that kind of detects any sort of, I guess you would say electromagnetic waves, and it will spike whenever something's around you. So if you put it up to like a light bulb or an electric box, the thing would go through the roof, or next to a cell phone. And then to the right was a spirit box that we got. Now, I've never seen a spirit box this big before, but the experiences that I've had with spirit boxes was that they would consistently come out with like random words, but it happened a lot. What I could say with these was, from my experience, I didn't have a ton of voices just randomly going off or just saying weird things. It was generally to questions that I was proposing or what my wife was proposing. So I love the fact that you got equipment and we got to go out together. Now, this first photo to me looks like the first place that you get to investigate. And what's kind of odd, and I felt it was a little weird, maybe a little cheap too, but we went out to basically an empty empty parking lot where the original hospital used to be that burned down, and allegedly people did die there. It was also a hospital where a lot of the miners would be taken, with their legs cut off, a lot of amputations. They ended up passing away from whatever diseases were happening at the time. Mind you, this is an old mining town. And so they get a lot of activity in that parking lot. And this is where my first experience happened with me and my wife was we weren't getting much on it at all. I mean, we probably were there about 15, 20 minutes and we didn't hear anything come through on our box other than, you hear it just switching channels and it sounds like a, like staticky, like white noise. And we were asking a lot of like, hey, are you a miner? Like, are you here with us? Do we have any names? We didn't get anything. And then towards kind of the end of this specific section and session of this location, my wife goes, is there a female here with us? And I mean, we got a female's voice coming through that was clear. And then, mind you, a lot of the stuff that other people were getting weren't like crystal clear. You could get something coming through, but it wasn't clear. And then that kind of was like, whoa. And everybody else kind of looked at us as well. And then we go, were you a nurse here at the hospital? And clear as day through the box, the thing goes, yes. Which again, on these, sometimes you can make out the word, but both reactions were clear. And it even had me going like, oh, that's crazy. There's another thing where my wife asked, what year was it? Or, where are you now? Are you here with us now? Or something like that. Basically talking about time. And it did say the word before, allegedly. So that was the experience at the empty parking lot that we had with that. After that, you go down to a different location. And that would have been this picture here where they used this smelter to basically cremate people because people were so poor and there were so many people dying that they couldn't afford to actually keep cremating people or to pay for their services to bury them. And so the owner of the mine allowed people to pay him to not just cremate them in the smelter, but what he would do is take their bones and their ashes and mix it into the concrete to help build up the town. And so you're walking on dead people in the entire freaking town, which is just kind of creepy within itself. This other picture that I'm about to show you, and I'll see if I can find some other images on here as well for you. This is where I think I experienced the most credible part of the investigation. And that was in this bathroom here that was a part of an apartment, I guess you would call it. There was nothing really attached to it, which we'll play into here in a moment. But me and my wife were in this room right here. And what you're looking at is a bathtub and a sink where a woman was killed by her husband. And if you look to the right, that's where you're going to run into the living room where another gentleman was gunned down as well, all part of the same homicide, all same murder. Allegedly, the woman, I think her name was Ruth, was cheating on her husband. And the house is actually connected to the mine, where you open up a closet and there's a tunnel system there that connects all the way to the mine. And the story goes was the husband came in through the closet, which is a whole different part of the room, and saw the man there and shot the man dead in the living room, which we investigated, and then came in and shot his wife dead in that same exact tub. That is the legit tub that she passed away in. Well, we put a REM pod on the couch along with 2 K2 meters, and all 3 were going off. So that kind of gives a signifier of somebody was sitting on the couch with us. I wasn't on the couch, I was just standing there. And then the K2s were going off. I did check the room with my own device. There was no electricity going through the room. I checked all the boxes. I did check the walls. I went up and down, kind of like they do in Ghost Hunters. I've watched 20 plus years of people investigating, so I felt pretty comfortable. So everybody was in the living room. My wife and I were in the entryway there. You'd have to pass us to come into this room right here. And we already got done investigating it, and we're kind of standing there watching the REM pods go off. And no joke, we hear, it was clear as day, footsteps behind us. And both of us immediately looked at each other. And I didn't want to give away kind of what I heard. And I could tell she was like, "Did you hear what I heard?" And so I looked at her. I said, "Did you just hear footsteps?" And she goes, "Yeah." And it was pronounced. And so I asked the investigator that was with us, kind of the main person that was giving us the tour and, part of the whole spiel. I said, "Hey, is there another apartment? Is there another building connected to this?" And she says, "No, why?" And I said, "Well, we just had very distinct footsteps right behind us in this room." And she's like, "Can you show me where it was?" And it's a small room. It's the size of my closet. So I just pointed. I was like, "This is where it was." There was multiple footsteps, clear as day. So that was probably out of the entire tour, the most, I would feel credible thing that happened as to something I can't really explain. As dilapidated, is that a word? As it is, it wasn't really in the sense of oh, it could have been creaking. It was a footstep, or footsteps, I should say. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So that was probably the one thing out of this whole tour that I couldn't explain. The K2 meters going off at times did happen, and we'll get into that in just one moment. Even at this location as well. And as I mentioned, I went around the whole apartment here and it checked everything. I don't think there's any electricity running through it, nothing connected. So that was the weirdest thing. We didn't get any voices from our spirit box at this location. Other people did. That's not true. Actually, we did. We got the name Ruth, which we thought was interesting because, again, this was Ruth's apartment, the lady that was killed by her husband. I do want to see if I could find some other images for you here of maybe the apartment. Here's another one of the bathtub itself on the inside. When I was there, the sink was knocked off, which is kind of sad. So I don't know if it's vandalized or what. There's a lot of people that do vandalize things in this town, allegedly. They vandalized the cemetery and things like that. One of the places that we did get to investigate was the high school that I guess is very haunted as well. This is what the hallway looks like. I will say at night, because there's not many lights in this town, creepy as hell, that's for sure. And we got to investigate the auditorium. And this is what it looks like when you're standing on stage. So when you're on stage of the auditorium, that is the doors that you would come in. And when you're coming in through those doors, you'd be facing basically the stage. And up top in the rafters are seating. And this would be basically like the gymnasium where they would play basketball and stuff. And the experiences people have had here is that there's 2 little boys that will allow you to give them a hug, and they will also hold your hand, that you will actually feel the hug yourself, and also you'll feel them in the palm of your hand holding your hand. So we had hits on our K2 meter about a child's height, and somebody else in our group was also communicating with them through the spirit box as well, and they were actually getting a lot of communication happening. And I believe the name that came through was Ivan, and I believe Ivan is one of the boys that is known to communicate and hold your hand. I can't forget the other little boy. When I say little, I'm talking about 10 years old. His name, for some reason, Ryan's popping in my head. But we had a lot of K2 hits. Somebody standing there. The other individual that we were with that was getting a lot of communication had a full spike for a good while from his meter. And again, there's not much going through the area that we're in. As you can see, it's pretty run down. The school is basically being used for businesses as well as artists now to work on various things and various items. And I think this is that's a different part of it. So we got the parking lot. We went to the smelter. We went to the high school. And then the other part, which was in the video, it's not that great of a look itself, but it was the cemetery that at the beginning they showed here. And this part you would think would be really scary. At night, there's no visibility there whatsoever. You had to have a lantern on you. And so this is where somebody would be buried right here. And the reason why they put fences around this was for animals. And so, we're used to people being buried, 6 or more feet below, and also in chambers or crypts down below. These individuals at times were just buried about 3 feet below dirt, and animals would dig them up and kind of remove their body and start kind of feasting on it, but also scattering it about. And so if somebody was wealthy enough or had enough money, they would build these fences right here to stop that from happening. Now, one thing that was pretty crazy that I wish I had a photo of, I'll see if I can find some photos for you while we're chatting here, is they would have a pipe in the ground, and this pipe would run all the way to basically where the person was being buried inside their coffin. And the reason for that was people would be buried alive because they were in such like a state of I don't know if you call it comatose or what we'd call it, basically in a coma, is that the person couldn't tell if they were alive or dead. And so they would bury them with this pipe in the ground, and it's only like that big. And it would allow them to get oxygen down there. So if they were alive, they would be able to breathe and they wouldn't suffocate to death. But also what they would do is in that pipe, they would attach a string to your finger, and they would have a bell connected to it up top in one of these, iron fences here. So when you move your finger, it would ring the bell. And that's where you kind of get the phrase of saved by the bell or dead ringer. And that would alarm the people in the town of like, hey, somebody's alive, the bell's ringing. Some things that were also happening is sometimes the line would break and snap, and then you're kind of screwed. But we did see the pipes itself there. A lot of communication happened here with spirit boxes. There's a child named Bruno. We did have the name Bruno come through our box as well. Very clear person named Mike was also coming through on our box. We were getting K2 hits, which was wild because guys, when I say there's nothing out there, there's freaking no electricity. There's nothing out here. It's in the middle of a freaking desert. And so we were getting that about a child's height. Bruno was a 4-year-old child. We're getting that on his height as well. Other people are getting some communication. I know for my wife and I, we're getting a lot of communication through ours, but it almost seemed like this was the only place where a lot of people were trying to talk at the same time. We could hear females' voices, males' voices. We couldn't really always make out what they were saying. And so we had to even state like, hey, it seems like a lot of you are trying to talk at once. Is there any way that maybe you guys could communicate one at a time? And that's where we got kind of the pronounce of like Mike and then Bruno, which is, how common is the name Bruno, right? So we had those types of hits. One thing that was specified was a lot of people were vandalizing their crypts. They were digging bodies up, even like current day. They were taking their gates, their the way you open it. And our lead investigator was saying something that she's experienced was how upset the spirits were. This is over a course of a ton of investigations, kind of communicating with her, saying that they were upset. They didn't want anybody to visit their gravesite. They felt forgotten. And so what she's been kind of doing is taking over that role of bringing back or trying to find some of the objects that were taken. So, for example, one of the headstones was vandalized, and so she's trying to kind of bring that back to its current state. A gate was stolen. She lost her ring on site, and using the spirit box and the K2, the spirits actually helped her find her ring. For example, they would say the word colder or warmer, or the word you found it, you're on top of it, those types of words through the spirit box, and she was able to find her ring over the course of a couple investigations there. So, pretty wild stuff. I would say that I didn't have anything for me that was, whoa, this is wild. I fully believe it. The only thing that I felt that I experienced was the footsteps that I couldn't explain. It was pronounced, especially in those old buildings. It's not like one of those things of like, oh, it might have just been this or that. They're so old that you hear the footsteps. Like it is freaking pronounced. There's nobody behind us. All the people that were in our group was there in front of us. So if you are ever in Jerome, highly recommend their tour. I would love to go on it again. You have to pay for the 2-hour session. With the 2-hour session, you get to go to different locations than everybody else. So a lot of our group left after the first hour. And so we were with about 2 other people that were by themselves and have gone on investigations themselves. So I wanted to share it with you. You might be asking, well, where's all the footage? Where's all the videos, Brad? From my understanding, they don't let you film everything. And the things you could film is just lackluster. And I didn't feel like it was very entertaining. And also, I wanted to be fully immersed. It was my first investigation, and I wasn't expecting to use equipment. So we had the laser grid, and I just wanted to kind of experience it and have that time with my wife since we were on vacation. So hope you could be understanding. If there's another ghost tour, which that's something we want to look into now that we kind of experienced it ourselves, we want to bring you guys along with and maybe even film it there and try to figure out how to do that. The other thing was lighting. Guys, again, it's a ghost town. There, I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere. There is not much light other than I think the only location where there was actual light was the high school itself that was being used again as businesses and artists. So that's what I found. Nothing happened to me at the Grand Hotel. Scary, creepy ass place as it is though. And then on the ghost tour, the footsteps were the most pronounced. A lot of stuff with the spirit box and the K2. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed me kind of relaying out that story. It was a long story nonetheless. Gave you a little bit of history of what was going on here. And if y'all enjoyed it and you think we deserve your subscription, hit that like and subscribe button. Leave us a comment down below. And folks, I'll tell you, whoa, I'm messed up here. I'll see you later here on Spooky Adventures. Take care, folks.